Hello friends, this is Professor Watermelon, and it's time for another bedtime story time. Now this time I'm going to share a story of mine that I wrote a long time ago actually, now that I think of it, probably about 10 years ago. Well, I wrote this story because I was inspired by some memories of when I used to go to my grandparents' cabin on a lake. Well, actually, it wasn't really a lake. It was a strip pit, which is where coal miners would mine the area and leave a big hole in the ground, and then rain would fill it up, and it would become a lake. But it was a lake to us. Anyway, so on each side of this lake, there would be frogs at night, and they would call to each other. And I brought one of those frogs with me. Now, it's a pretend frog, but it looks quite real. See this little guy? This is an American bullfrog. They're called bullfrogs because they sound like cows, believe it or not. I'll try to make the sound for you. It goes, roam, 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 roam. Does it sound like a cow? Well, that's why it's called a bullfrog. But when I would hear the bullfrogs calling to each other from one side of the lake to the other, I would think, are they talking to each other? Are they inviting each other to some kind of frog party? Well, many years later, I would write a story called Lilly and Pete. And here it is. Lilly and Pete. Way back in the hills lived two bullfrogs named Lilly and Pete. Now, sadly, their lily pads were split up during a storm to opposite sides of a deep and muddy creek. Now, Pete would call over to Lilly and he said, "Come over, come over, come over, come over." And Lilly, she was scared of deep and muddy water, so she said, "Too deep, too deep, too deep, too deep." So Pete decided that he would risk his speckled skin. So with a hop, a skip, and a jump, Pete dove into the water. But just as he came up for air, snap! Snapping Turtle nearly swallowed him whole. But Pete wouldn't go down easy, though. He punched and poked and flopped and wallered until that Snapping Turtle decided he had bitten off more than he could chew and spit Pete out, landing him smack dab on his lily pad. Now, is that where Pete wants to go? No, he wants to go over to Lily's lily pad. So that night, Pete called over to Lilly again. And he said, "Now you guys can try it with me, all right? Say it with me. Come over, come over, come over, come over." And Lilly said, too deep, too deep, too deep, too deep. So Pete decided he would risk his speckled skin once again. With a hop, a skip, and a jump, Pete dove into the water. And just as he came up for air, gulp! Channel catfish nearly swallowed him whole. But Pete wouldn't go down easy, though. He punched and poked and flopped and wallered until that catfish had decided he had bitten off more than he could chew and spit Pete out, landing him right back on his lily pad. Now, is that where Pete wants to be? Nope. He wants over to Lily's lily pad. So, that night, he called over once again, and he said, "Come over, come over, come over, come over." And Lilly said, "Try it with me. Too deep, too deep, too deep, too deep, too deep." So Pete decided that he would risk his speckled skin again. So with a hop, a skip, and a jump, Pete dove into the water. And just as he came up for air, strike! Guess what it was? Cottonmouth snake. But Pete thought fast, and he dove back under the water, and he picked up a string of seaweed. He pulled that seaweed to the top, and he lassoed that seaweed like a bridle to a horse and threw it right on top of that snake and yanked tight and jumped on that snake and said, "What do you think? Where do you think this is going?" He guided that snake right over to where? Lily's lily pad. That's right. And he jumped off that snake and gave him a swift kick and said, "Beat it, beat it, beat it, beat it, beat it, beat it," and splash! Landed right next to Lily's lily pad. Scoot over, scoot over, scoot over, scoot over. My Pete, my Pete, my Pete, my Pete. And it was love forever after. Lilly and Pete. Good night. Sweet dreams. See you next time.